Okay, here we are once again. Good morning, good people. I hope everyone had a terrific Easter weekend. You didn't go crazy on Easter. Although, if you did, I mean, who could blame you? We have another rainy day here, another rainy Monday. I think we need to consider what we think about Mondays and what we think about the rain because it is hard to get started on a rainy Monday morning the day after Easter. At least I'm struggling with it. So if you guys are as well, hopefully this live here will be a shot of adrenaline, although I'll have to shoot myself up first before I do that with anyone else. But here's what we're going to do today. So I'm feeling, like I said, a little lazy, a little unmotivated, having a tough time. So, what I'm going to do, instead of taking a chance of speaking extemporaneously and just like really stepping all over my tongue, I'm going to read something that I've previously written. I think this will be of value to everybody. It's from my book. The book is called Keeping It Off, Your Guide to Weight Loss. And really, what it has to do with is the ultimate solution. What is the ultimate solution for keeping your weight off? So, the name of this chapter is called Identity, the Ultimate Solution. So, I teased this talking about The Who, right? And some people might have been thinking of the band, some people might have been thinking of the World Health Organization. I mean, how the band would have to do with keeping weight off is really one that, I couldn't figure it out. Maybe you can. The World Health Organization, possibly, although, they are a health organization kind of in name only sometimes. But what we're discussing is, again, identity. Who? So let me just read. Let me just stop leading up. I may stop and make a couple of comments, but for the most part, I want the narrative to kind of explain itself. Okay. I have no desire to rehash the old be do have principle, which has been commented on by philosophers and gurus for decades, except to say this. Of the three, the be is by far the most important. And in the context of weight and health, it is the ultimate solution. Little known fact, I was a vegan for many years, and if you ever wanted to flummox people of an older generation, there is no better way than to tell them you are a vegan while they are trying to feed you. Grandma, I would say, I'm vegan. I don't eat meat or fish or dairy. You don't eat meat? I've never heard of such a thing. Have some chicken. Chicken is meat, Grandma. Then have some chicken soup. Grandma, I don't understand. What do you eat? It's easy to discuss what I don't eat. Basically, anything that ever had a face or anything that comes from anything that ever had a face. Fine, I'll make you some eggs then. Nope. This is ridiculous, honey. I've never met a person who doesn't eat anything. It's not normal. I eat. I eat vegetables, fruits, nuts, grains. That's not food. For me, honey, just this once, have some brisket. I'll tell you what, Grandma, I will eat some brisket if you will eat some bacon. I can't have bacon. I'm kosher. Are you getting it now, Grandma? I am vegan. See, as weird as my grandmother thought I was, we were both coming from the same place. Eating vegan wasn't something I did casually or occasionally. It was what I did because it flowed necessarily from who I had chosen to be. And she didn't just do kosher. She was kosher because she chose to be an observant Jew. While we're on the subject of bacon, there's an old joke about a rabbi and a priest who meet for dinner one evening. Tell me the truth, said the priest over appetizers. Have you ever eaten pork? Once, said the rabbi, a long time ago. Good, wasn't it? Replied the priest. The rabbi nodded before continuing. Tell me, old friend, have you ever been with a woman? Yes, many years before I was ordained, I was with a woman, the priest blushed. I see, said the rabbi. Better than pork, isn't it? This possibly offensive joke and the story of myself and my grandmother speak to the power of identity. There are many definitions of identity, but we can think of it as who a person chooses or believes himself to be, or the qualities he chooses to take on. Identities are usually based on what one values, or their position or occupation. Often one takes on an identity because it is practical in a given situation, like a soldier whose identity includes courage and toughness. Identity works with our understanding of flow as presented above. Okay, just a little aside here. Again, this is one chapter in a book. And when I'm mentioning flow, what I'm talking about is there were chapters about kind of not going against the flow, not going against the grain. It's just much more difficult. Okay, so you'll have to read that for yourself to really get this in context. So identity works with our understanding of flow as presented above, in that once an identity is occupied fully, it is not a strain, or it is less of one, to perform the actions required of the chosen identity. It is simply what one does given who they are. Thus, writers write, leaders lead. Vegans refrain from eating meat. Marines are the first ones in. Mothers care for their young. Yankees fans hate the Red Sox, and vice versa. And a million trillion other examples. It must be noted that identity can work both ways. Who one decides to be can bring about a life of honor or a life of crime. Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time, and nobody saw it coming. Well, almost nobody. Brady wasn't particularly fast or strong, and he wasn't even the most highly touted quarterback on his college team. He was the 199th player selected in the college draft in the year 2000, meaning 198 players were judged to be better than he was and selected before him. 198. But if you had asked Tom Brady, he would have told you he was the best player that year. The first time he met the owner of the New England Patriots, his boss, also named Tom, he walked up to him and confidently declared, "I'm the best decision this organization has ever made." After his second game, he turned to another player and stated, "I'm going to be a great one. I'm going to be one of the best at this game." In a sport full of intense workaholics, Tom's intensity, discipline, and work ethic are legendary. He follows a super strict diet which does not include sugar, white flour, or tomatoes. He reportedly never complains. The effort he makes stems from who he is, one of the greatest quarterbacks and athletes of all time. And the key seems to be that he has no confusion or conflicts about this fact. No buts or what ifs or some days. It's basically and simply who he has decided to be. He was a champion before he won a single game, and he'll be a champion long after he retires. He's not the greatest quarterback one day and just another guy who plays the position, but refuses to put forth the effort and intensity required to be the best on the next. End of chapter. There's actually an exercise after. So the way the book is formulated is that it's a workbook. And after every chapter, there are exercises to do, right? So there is an exercise that is involved with this as well. But I hope I express myself. And by the way, anytime you read something you wrote out loud, inevitably there are going to be things that you don't like about it. And I can tell you right now that there are a few things I could have expressed better. There are a couple of things I don't like about it, whether it be grammatically or the words I chose to use. But I hope that you get the idea about this. The who we are, our identity is so powerful. You know, we're very focused on the things that we do, and of course we have to do the right things. But anytime there's doing this involved, pardon me, anytime there's action, especially over a time period, right? Consistent actions needed to accomplish something, and fortunately or unfortunately, that's how accomplishing things work, right? It doesn't happen if we're good one day, bad the next. Um, at least not to the degree that we wanted to. So the key is who we are, who we've decided to be, because then there is not that tension. You know, I don't want to do it. You know, I don't think my grandmother ever woke up and said, I don't want to be kosher today. Maybe she did, but I doubt it. It was something that, you know, that stemmed from who she was, and it wasn't a decision. It was a decision that was made long ago. So she didn't suffer with it. She didn't torment herself. And here's where we get into trouble keeping the weight off, because when we go to take it off in the first place, we're often depriving ourselves, or we feel deprived. We feel that these actions are necessary to avoid some consequence. It's not what we want to do. It doesn't stem naturally from who we are. But think about it. I mean, you know, people who don't torment themselves like that. You know, people who just part of their being is that they are healthy people. They would never consider doing some of the things that other people do. They would never consider stopping off at McDonald's on the way home. It's just not part of who they are. You might have been in this place at some point. Maybe you are now. Hopefully you are now. That's the ultimate goal, to get to that place, right? But it may involve change and thus strain. I know for myself personally, I have definitely been at that place in the past. Right now, I'm not. I'm not. Now, this begs the question, well, what happens with identity? How come it could be so strong for a while and then not be strong? We lose it or forget it, or it just weakens. And I think this is a good way to frame it, right? If we're not doing the right things, if we're becoming less healthier, if we're becoming heavier, or we're not maintaining our weight loss, you know, the identity is out to some degree. How did it fall out? What happened? What are those factors that will weaken identity? Now, this is a whole Pandora's box, and I don't necessarily know the answers, at least not all of them. I have some ideas, but I'm not going to share them right now. I want to leave you with that idea. What are the factors that weaken your identity? Where is it now? And if it's not in a good, strong place, like if you're not firmly grounded in who you are and those decisions that you've made, what happened? And that's a really kind of nice, curious, non-judgmental place to be, right? What happened to me? What happened to my identity? Where did it change? Whether we're talking about in the realm of weight loss or something else. You know, I always knew I was blank. And then something changed. What was it? I mean, presumably it was more than one thing, or it was there were some decisions. But again, I'm getting into now kind of my ideas about it. So I'm going to leave you with that. If you have anything to share about that, please do so. I mean, when you think about it, this is a fascinating conversation. This is a fascinating thing to conceive of. So I would really love to know what you have to say about it. In the meantime, I'm going to try to figure it out myself, but not too much, right? When we figure too much, it doesn't work. The idea is basically to do kind of a search and discovery and maybe search and destroy mission, right? Find out what the factor is and then do something about it, as opposed to, constantly thinking and thinking and thinking about it. That doesn't help anything. Okay, guys, that's it. I will speak to everyone next week. Have a terrific week and take care.